Okay, so we just talked about how to use the Excel to collect the data or to get the to do a new web query, and we talked about these black arrows on the yellow background. And here he talks about speed of execution, which really we don't have to worry about it at all. But if you want to see, he just says that uh, 2007 and 2010 versions of Excel are slower than 2002 because 2002, no, sorry, later versions they started putting in more security, uh, uh, enforcing more security, so it was took more time. But so he says actually he uses 2002, but he doesn't necessarily recommend that. So anyway, I don't think any of us has 2002, so we'll just use what we have. Next, he talks about bringing the data back. So bring it into our Excel sheet. So after you've clicked a yellow icon to turn it green, using, I hope, the one in the upper left corner of the page, click the Import button at the bottom of the new query window. After a few seconds, the Import Data window appears as shown in Figure 1.3. Let's try that. So here we have this. We click this, and then we click Import. It says after a few seconds. This is happening. And then we get that. Accept the default destination cell A1 and click OK. The reason to use cell A1 becomes apparent when it's time to refresh the query using VBA later in this chapter. There are some useful properties to set, so I recommend that you click the Properties button before you complete the import. I don't know, he said click OK. Then he says do the properties. It's a little bit backwards there. So before we click OK, let's set the properties. Be sure that the Save Query Definition box is checked. That way you can repeatedly run the query without having to define it all over again. Let's see what he's talking about. Properties. So Save Query Definition. The Enable Background Refresh checkbox requires a little explanation. If it is filled, any VBA procedure that is running continues running as the query executes, and other direct actions by the users can proceed normally. So sometimes that can cause problems if a procedure depends. So what he's saying is that if you leave that checked, then your code will run in the background. Means like before, it'll run in the background, and it doesn't need so it says that if sometimes like that can cause a problem because it needs some kind of response and it doesn't get it, but it still just runs. So sometimes that can cause problems if a procedure depends on the results of a query. If the procedure expects to find data that isn't available yet, you might get a runtime error or some meaningless result. Therefore, I usually clear. So let's do that. Let's clear Enable Background Refresh. Okay. So we have this one, and we cleared that one. The various options in the properties listed and are subtly different but can be important. I spent 3 pages detailing the differences in another book, and I don't propose to do it here. For present purposes, you might just as well accept the default. So he apparently describes all the differences, all these things in detail in a different book, but he's just going to let us accept the rest of them as default. So click OK when you have made any changes you want, and then click OK in the Import Data. Okay, so let's try it. So we click OK here. We're going to leave the defaults except for the ones that we changed, and then click OK again and let it run. Okay, so mine took a really long time. I paused it, but it took about 30 seconds to run. And that's what that thing about the background was. So if I was running some procedure that was depending on some data that was in the page, and it wasn't there yet, I would have a problem. So you don't want necessarily to let that happen. So that's why we unchecked that. Okay, so now though, it is in here. So that apparently everything that was in that page is here. Not the images, but the text. But there's some problem. Mine was supposed to be in A1, but there's nothing in A1. But in his text, Amazon.com is in A1. Where's mine? Let's see. Let's try Amazon.com is in D26. Well, I'm not sure if that's because Amazon's pages have changed or if I didn't do something right. So I think I'll try it once more and see what happens. I want to recheck that. So I copy this address and do it again. So it says retrieving data from website here. Now it's here. So I don't know what happened, but now it's here, which I think is better. Although it doesn't look exactly like his. It says it usually takes a few seconds, but it took me a lot longer than that. Okay, after finding the data, the next thing we have to do is within our spreadsheet, now that we have all of the web page in our spreadsheet, now we need to write something to find the right data in the spreadsheet. After the data has been retrieved from the web page, the next task is to locate the piece or pieces of information you're looking for. I want to stress though that you need to do this once only for each product you're tracking, and quite possibly just once for all the products. It depends on how it depends on how the web page administrator is managing the data. So in other words, it depends on whether they change the website at Amazon frequently or not. Hopefully not. At least for this, you don't want them to. What you need to look for is a string of text that's normally a constant, one that doesn't change from hour to hour or day to day. Figure 1.6 shows a portion of the results of a query. So here you can see product details per paperback, publisher, language, ISBN, and I think here is what he's talking about. Amazon's bestsellers rank. So it's currently 12,079. So, but anyway, he's looking for these words here. Maybe. Bestsellers rank. So what you need to look for is a string of text that normally is that's normally constant, that is, it won't change from hour to hour or day to day. If you use Excel's find feature to scan a worksheet for the string sellers rank, you can locate the worksheet cell that also contains the ranking for the product. So let's look for sellers rank here. Oops. Why do I keep doing that? Okay. So sellers rank, which is 42,618. You can locate the worksheet cell that also contains the ranking for the product. With just a little more work, which you can easily automate, and which I described in the next section about VBA code, you can isolate the actual ranking from the surrounding text. So we'll be able to get this number instead of all of this. We can just isolate and just get this number, which is really what we want. Okay, so let's stop here, and then we're going to come back and talk about how to do that.